Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more thrilling, real-life revenge tales that are jaw-dropping and unforgettable. You won't want to miss this one. Ethan had always valued the calm of his apartment. Every evening after a long day at the office, he would return to his modest yet comfortable space, make a cup of chamomile tea, and settle into the familiar silence that wrapped around him like a protective blanket. His life was orderly: wake up, work, come home, read or play soft music, and sleep without disturbance. He lived alone, but the few neighbors in the building were quiet, courteous, and respectful. Life was simple, predictable, and peaceful. That peace, however, was shattered the day Mark moved into apartment 3B. At first, it was barely noticeable, a faint bass note here, laughter muffled through the walls there. Ethan ignored it, attributing it to the natural noise of apartment living. But the disturbances increased rapidly. Bass-heavy music poured from Mark's apartment late into the night, laughter and shouting echoed through the hallways, and parties erupted seemingly every other night. Ethan tried to sleep, tried meditation, even tried leaving the windows closed to block the vibrations, but nothing worked. The polite approach came first. Ethan knocked on Mark's door, hoping diplomacy might save his evenings. Mark answered, smiling widely, a picture of charm and youthful confidence. "Hey! Everything okay?" he asked. Ethan explained the problem calmly, requesting that the late-night parties be toned down. Mark laughed lightly, nodded, and promised, "Sure thing, I'll keep it down." But the promise was meaningless. The first night after the conversation, the bass rattled Ethan's ceiling tiles, and by the end of the week, the noise was worse than ever. Ethan's work suffered. The exhaustion of sleepless nights gnawed at his focus and patience. Emails went unanswered longer than usual, deadlines loomed closer, and Ethan felt a simmering frustration that made him feel as though his walls were closing in. Something had to be done. Confrontation had failed. Politeness was useless. He considered moving, but his apartment was perfect, the rent fair, and he had spent years making it a home. There had to be another way, a solution more clever, more precise than anger or shouting. One evening, as Ethan returned home, he noticed Mark perched on his balcony, a large Bluetooth speaker in hand, blasting electronic music at a volume that made the glass tremble. The speaker was in plain sight, unsecured, and clearly accessible from the balcony. For the first time in weeks, Ethan's frustration transformed into a spark of inspiration. Perhaps he didn't need confrontation at all. Perhaps there was a more creative approach. One that would restore his evenings without Mark ever suspecting the source. He began observing. Days turned into nights of careful attention. Ethan watched Mark's routines, the comings and goings of his friends, the times his music blared the loudest. He noted the quirks of the speaker, how it connected via Bluetooth, and when Mark left it unattended. Each observation added a new piece to the puzzle forming in Ethan's mind. Finally, after what felt like a small eternity, he felt ready. It began on a Thursday night. Ethan, calm and precise, connected his phone to Mark's Bluetooth speaker. The music abruptly stopped. Silence. Then, from the small device on the balcony, a distorted, high-pitched screech erupted. The sound sliced through the night, bouncing off walls, cutting conversations short, and sending Mark's friends into confusion. Mark himself froze, staring helplessly at the speaker, his smile faltering as he tried to figure out what had gone wrong. Ethan, from his apartment across the hall, leaned back in his chair with a quiet sense of satisfaction. The first strike had been successful, subtle yet effective, and he knew this was only the beginning. The following week, Ethan experimented with more inventive disruptions. A recording of a baby crying played at 3 a.m., piercing and relentless, sending Mark and his guests scrambling to stop the noise. A fire alarm sound blared at dawn, perfectly timed to ruin late-night hangovers. A police siren roared across the balcony, making Mark peek out nervously, his friends whispering in confusion. Each prank was meticulously calculated, timed, executed, and withdrawn before Mark could even react fully. Word of the strange happenings spread quietly among neighbors. Ethan received discreet nods of gratitude from fellow residents, their relief tangible. The late-night parties dwindled. Friends stopped visiting. Apartment 3B, once a hub of chaos, became a shadow of its former self. Yet Ethan didn't stop there. He wanted not just peace, but a lasting lesson in civility for Mark. He observed Mark during the day too, noting how he left doors unlocked, casually displayed gadgets, and failed to notice the world beyond his own apartment. Each habit, each flaw became a tool in Ethan's arsenal. And then he escalated. One night, he remotely connected to the Bluetooth speaker again, orchestrating a sequence of sounds designed to embarrass. First, snippets of Mark's own voice singing off-key to his favorite songs, recorded at prior parties, echoed across the balcony. Then came dog barks, awkward coughs, and even sounds of objects breaking. Mark bolted onto the balcony, red-faced and gesturing wildly at imaginary saboteurs. His friends laughed nervously, unsure whether to flee or join in. Ethan's smirk widened, satisfaction coursing through him. Mark's confusion turned to suspicion. He installed cameras, changed speaker passwords, and even asked the building management if anyone had reported unusual disturbances. Ethan remained careful, always staying one step ahead. He never directly confronted Mark, never left evidence, only watched and waited, enjoying the subtle victories as they unfolded. Ethan began to weave smaller threads into his plan. A neighbor's dog bark recorded and played intermittently. A snippet of a news report about a fictional noise complaint. Even a faint recording of someone whispering "turn it down" in the middle of the night, causing Mark to glance nervously at the street. Each disruption was brief, enough to frustrate, enough to unsettle, but never traceable. One day, Mark knocked on Ethan's door, trying to appear casual despite the obvious stress in his eyes. "Hey, have you noticed anything odd with my speaker lately?" he asked, frowning. Not really. Maybe it's a technical glitch?" Ethan replied smoothly, smiling politely, masking the glee that bubbled inside him. Mark left, still unconvinced but powerless to act. The revenge was perfect, invisible, untouchable. Weeks passed. Ethan planned his final, grand performance. Using all the information he had gathered, he synchronized Mark's devices to play sounds at strategic intervals. Alarms at 7 a.m., barking at 9, recordings of Mark's own laugh at 1 p.m., and distorted music creeping in at 6 p.m. The cacophony erupted, and the consequences were immediate. Friends stopped visiting, gossip spread through the building, and Mark's reputation as the party king crumbled quietly. From his apartment, Ethan watched the chaos unfold silently, a cup of tea in hand. There was no gloating, no shouting, only the serene satisfaction of order restored. Mark never discovered the mastermind behind his misery, and the building slowly returned to calm. Ethan spent time reflecting on the journey. He realized revenge was not about rage or destruction. It was about patience, creativity, and subtlety. The noise that had once invaded his life was now gone, and he had achieved something more than quiet. He had reclaimed control of his own environment without resorting to violence or confrontation. The building's residents gradually returned to their routines. Mark, unknowingly reformed, avoided loud gatherings, respecting the quiet he had once ignored. Ethan resumed his evening routines, feeling the comfort of peace he had worked so hard to restore. He often thought about the delicate balance between mischief and justice, realizing that cleverness, observation, and restraint could be more powerful than any direct confrontation. As the sun set on another quiet evening, Ethan sipped his tea, listening to the gentle hum of the city in the distance. He had learned that some battles were won not with noise, but with silence and strategy. The lesson he imparted to Mark, though invisible, was profound: respect the world around you, or the world will quietly, cleverly, and inevitably respond.